The time is 8:45. Here's the news edited by Danushka Madhavala, read by Victor Raj. Here are the headlines of the local news. A sum of 237 billion rupees has been allocated to the Ministry of Education's budget for the year 2024. Labour Minister says the government will not alter mandatory 28 days training policy for domestic workers. Landslide warnings are issued for several districts of the island. A fertilizer subsidy of 1,000 million rupees is to be credited to the farmers engaged in Maha-season cultivation. Veteran singer Atula Sri Gamage has passed away. Foreign news: Israeli attacks kill over 10,000 people in Gaza. In sports news, Angela Matthews becomes first ever batsman to timed out. Local news in detail. Education Minister Sushil Premchand said a sum of 237 billion rupees has been allocated to the Ministry of Education's budget for the year 2024. This amount specifically pertains to education-related capital and recurring expenses in the 9 provinces. The minister added that the Cabinet has already approved the policy framework for education reforms, which will present in Parliament after receiving sectoral parliamentary approval. This initiative aims to establish a stable education policy that endures across different governments and ministers. It will drive reforms in 4 key areas, focusing on transitioning from an exam-centric system to a more diversified and inclusive classroom assessment. He said that the ultimate goal is to provide quality education to both students and educators. Addressing the media conference held at the Presidential Media Center today, held under the theme Collective Path to a Stable Country, Minister Premchand said the upcoming academic year will commence on the February 19th of 2024, marking the initiation of the first school term. He emphasized that the curriculum spanning from the first to the 11th year will be completed within the same academic year. Labour and Foreign Employment Minister Manusha Nanaikara said that the government will not alter its policies regarding the mandatory 28 days training for individuals departing for foreign employment as domestic workers. He emphasized that this training is designed to enhance job security and increase salaries. The minister expressed these views while attending the inauguration of the training centre, which offers job training programs focused on the Korean agriculture sector and provides training for those pursuing domestic worker positions abroad. Minister Nanaikar emphasized that the domestic workers who depart without prior training often face various challenges and earn lower salaries compared to their counterparts from other countries. He also pointed out that some foreign employment agencies are not pleased with the mandatory training requirement, as their primary focus is on maximizing profits. The National Building Research Organization has issued landslide warnings for several districts. Level 1 yellow warnings were issued for Walasmulla, Katuwana and Okevela Divisional Secretariat divisions in the surrounding areas of the Hambantota district, Yatinuvara and Ududumbura Divisional Secretariat divisions and surrounding areas of the Kandy district, Mavanella, Kaligamu and Kagala Divisional Secretariat divisions and surrounding areas of the Kagala district, Rathata, Amanganga Kodali, Lagala, Pallegama and Ukuvela Divisional Secretariat divisions and the surrounding areas of the Matale district. Level 2 amber warning was issued for Haputhala Divisional Secretariat divisions and surrounding areas of the Badula district. Tumpani Divisional Secretariat division and surrounding areas of the Kandy district, Kalawana, Ratnapura, Balangoda, Kuruvita Alapata, Kolonna, Ahaliagoda, Opanayaka, Godakavela, Veligapola and Imbulpe Divisional Secretariat Divisions and surrounding areas of the Ratnapura district. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing with more local news, 1,000 million rupees received by the Agriculture Ministry as the first installment for the fertilizer subsidy to farmers in the upcoming season was credited to the accounts of the district officers of the ministry today. In the Maha season, 800,000 hectares of paddy will be cultivated. Around 1.2 million farmers will be provided 15,000 rupees per hectare. The total amount expected to be spent by the government for providing this fertilizer subsidy is 12,000 million rupees. Accordingly, it has been planned to credit farmers' accounts with the 15,000 rupees per hectare. Fertilizers supplied by the government sector have already been sent to all agrarian service centers. Minister Mahinda Amaravira said that action will be taken to provide this financial assistance to every person who were engaged in farming. Veteran singer Atul Sri Gamage has passed away. He was 60 at the time of his demise. He had passed away while receiving treatment at Sri Javadharpura Hospital. Details of his funeral arrangements will be notified later. That ends local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Mahatma.
The Education Ministry has announced that the first phase of the third school term of 2023 for the government and government-approved schools will end on December 22, 2023, and the second phase of the third term will commence on the February 1st of 2024 and end on February 16th. Accordingly, the first term of 2024 will commence on February 19th. That came to you on Main News Story.
The Main News Story was brought to you by Sinhala Mahatma.
Moving on to Watchlight, the Haputale Valimada Main Road has been blocked for traffic movement near the Walgahavela Junction, which is around 6.5 km away from the Haputale city, owing to an earth slip. The RDA and the other authorities say that the road is now being cleared to reopen for the traffic. That ends Watchlight. Moving on to world news, let's take a look at the headlines. Israeli attacks kill over 10,000 people in Gaza. Australian Prime Minister Albanese meets Xi Jinping in long-awaited China visit. The US is quietly arming Taiwan to the teeth. World news in detail. At least 10,022 Palestinians killed in Israeli attacks on Gaza. 152 killed in occupied West Bank since October 7th. More than 1,400 people killed in Hamas attack on Israel. As heavy bombardment continues across Gaza, 18 UN and other humanitarian organizations issue a statement calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. Daniel Hagari, the spokesman for the Israel Defense Force, says the Israeli military will deepen and increase the strikes on Gaza. At a press conference, he told reporters this would allow Israel to minimize the risks to our forces in the next stage of the war, and it would happen from today. Hagari also repeated a call for residents of Gaza City to move to the south of the region, saying it was for their own safety. The warning comes on the same day aid was allowed into Gaza from Egypt for the first time since the Israel-Hamas war erupted. Despite some leaders celebrating the move, the UN called the aid a drop in the ocean of what's needed. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Chinese President Xi Jinping have met for talks aimed at easing years of tensions in Beijing. Mr. Albanese, who landed in Shanghai on Saturday, is the first Australian leader to visit China since 2016. The visit is seen as a key moment in thawing relations after a string of trade and security disputes. Trade will top the agenda. Mr. Albanese is calling for the removal of Chinese tariffs on Australian goods. Mr. Xi is expected to ask for more access to key Australian sectors. What I would like is that we need to cooperate with China where we can, disagree where we must, and engage in our national interests, Mr. Albanese told reporters in Beijing on Monday ahead of the meeting. When U.S. President Joe Biden recently signed off on an $80 million grant to Taiwan for the purchase of American military equipment, China said it deplores and opposes what Washington had done. To the casual observer, it didn't appear a steep sum. It was less than the cost of a single modern fighter jet. Taiwan already has an order more than $14 billion worth of U.S. military equipment. To wrap up the world news, let's take a look at the headlines once again. Israeli attacks kill over 10,000 people in Gaza. Australian Prime Minister Albanese meets Xi Jinping in long-awaited China visit. The U.S. is quietly arming Taiwan to the teeth. That ends world news.
Development news.
Moving on to development news, the Ceylon Electricity Board is going to install 200 megawatt floating solar power plants on the surface of water of Sinhala Reservoir. The expression of interest to construct the floating solar power plant on the least cost basis by the CEB. Accordingly, EOI are invited from prospective project proponents for the construction of 200 megawatt floating solar photovoltaic power plants in the water surface of Sinhala Reservoir. The project aims to leverage the reservoir's existing hydroelectric power generation capabilities by complementing it with daytime solar energy production. The CEB sources said that the deadline for submission of proposals is December 13th at 10 a.m. That ends development news.
Moving on with sports news.
The ICC World Cup match between Sri Lanka and Bangladesh is now being played at Delhi. Batted first, Sri Lanka scored 279 runs all out. In reply, Bangladesh scored 168 runs for the loss of 2 wickets at the end of 26 overs a short while ago. Meanwhile, Angelo Matthews became the first batter ever to be timed out in international cricket after he asked for a helmet change having walked to the pitch and was not ready to face the ball within 2 minutes the ICC playing conditions allow. The trap of Matthews' helmet appeared to be broken as he prepared to face the bowling of Shakib Al Hasan, and he soon called for a replacement helmet. He had not taken strike, however, and the umpires Maurice Erasmus and Richard Illingworth gave him out. At the time of his being given out, Bangladesh had long since broken their handle and had taken their place in the field, with Shakib at the top of his mark ready to bowl. The time at the dismissal of the previous batter was 3:49 p.m. local time. The time of Matthews being given out was 3:54. This suggests the umpires had given him more than a minute's grace before ruling him out. The ICC playing conditions state a new batter needs to be ready to face their first ball within 2 minutes of arriving. That ends sports news.
Go එකක් තියන youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු වීන හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න
The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
British Steel plans to close down its blast furnace in Scunthorpe, putting up to 2,000 jobs at risk. The business, owned by the Chinese Jingye Group, wants to replace them with 2 electric arc furnaces, one at Scunthorpe and one at TZ. The construction is expected to take between 2 and 3 years. British Steel said it aimed to transform the firm into a green and sustainable company and had to look at different scenarios to help it to do those. Unions estimate the shift could ultimately lead to the loss of 1,500 to 2,000 jobs, predominantly at Scunthorpe. That ends Business News.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go එකක් තියන youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු වීන හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න
The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Moving on to economic news, license for oil and gas projects in the North Sea are said to be awarded annually under government plans. There is currently no fixed period between licensing around, but this would change under a bill to be amended in Tuesday's King's Speech. Minister said project would have to meet net zero targets and claimed the policy would bolster energy security. Greenpeace and encouraging oil and gas production was backward-facing and vowed to fight new license in court. That ends economic news.
Weather report.
Showers or thunder showers will occur at several places in the most provinces of the island after 1 p.m. tomorrow. Heavy showers about 100 mm are likely at some places in western, central, Sabragammu and Uva provinces and in Gol and Madra districts. Showers may occur in northern and eastern provinces during the morning too. Misty conditions can be expected at some places in western, Sabragammu, central and Uva provinces during the morning. That ends weather report. To wrap up the night news on Radio Sri Lanka, let's take a look at the headlines once again. A sum of 237 billion rupees has been allocated to the Ministry of Education's budget for the year 2024. Labour Minister says the government will not alter mandatory 28 days training policy for domestic workers. Landslide warnings are issued for several districts of the island. A fertilizer subsidy of 1,000 million rupees is to be credited to farmers engaged in the Maha-season cultivation. Veteran singer Atula Srikamage has passed away. Foreign news, Israeli attacks kill over 10,000 people in Gaza. In sports news, Angela Matthews becomes first ever batsman to timed out. With that, we wrap up the night news on Radio Sri Lanka. The time is 5 minutes down 9 o'clock.
Radio wherever you are. Radio Sri Lanka. Radio Sri Lanka, the station for the nation.
And on the airwave Radio Sri Lanka, on this particular cool and wet day, the 6th day of November 2023, the rest of the 55 minutes till the close down of transmission today, we are here to bring in your program, your choice, or the family choice on Radio Sri Lanka. Let's feature Daniel O'Donnell and Mary Duff for the listening pleasure of Electra Fernando, listening to us all the way from Jala.